In this tutorial, I am going to show you how to do two different kinds of raw edge applique. So applique is when you sew something, a shape, a letter, little embellishment on top of a project. So basically you're top stitching it. But applique specifically uses some or other decorative stitch, like you can see there. That is called a blanket stitch. It's got a kind of an L shape. This little pouch is not lined, so you can see the inside. There you go. And most machines have the blanket stitch, but you can use a straight stitch, you can use a zigzag stitch. That's also very popular. The thing about raw edge applique is the edge is raw. So this specific example I'm showing you here, I've done with a vinyl cover. I tried to find tutorials all over and I couldn't, so I made my own up. So if you do have a better way, I'm open to it. This is a beginner applique tutorial. So if you're a pro at doing machine applique, then this might not be for you. But let's get started. So I'll show you two different ones. I'll show you a plain one, and then I'll show you this vinyl glitter filled, because it's fun, kind of applique. It's got glitter on the inside. And first things first, for the simple applique, you'll need fabric to cut your shape out of and to applique, to use as your applique. You'll need some iron-on interfacing. I've already drawn my shapes on there, and I'll explain to you in a moment how I do that. Your pattern that you'll be using, this is my pyramid pouch pencil bag pattern. This is the original, as you can see. And then, of course, the fabric you'll be sewing it onto. And I am using a lightweight denim. And then if you want to do the glitter-filled one, I'd highly recommend using something like felt or fleece. Fleece is stretchy, so it can be tricky. But felt doesn't fray at the edges. So you've got one less thing to worry about, because you will be stitching a piece of vinyl, thin vinyl plastic on top of that. So I'm going to start with a simple raw edge applique. And the reason it's called raw edge, like I mentioned, because the edge of your shape is not finished. So you get different kinds of applique. Raw edge really is the most straightforward, easiest applique I've found that you can do. And what the basic concept over here is that you have your fabric for your pattern, whatever it is, and then you stick, glue, whatever, your shape onto that piece of fabric, and then you stitch around the edges to hold it in place. You'll see this done with embroidery machines. You'll see this done by hand. You get reverse applique, where you stitch the shape on the inside and you cut the outside out. That's a fun one. You get turned edge, turned point, something, needle point, I can't remember. Something applique where it's hemmed, where it's actually folded under, so you don't have the raw edge. So many different kinds of ways to do this. If you're a beginner, this is a very easy way to do. And if you're a beginner, you may be asking, what kind of a shape should I go for? So over here, I have two shapes. I think you can see them. I have a heart. That's my absolutely favorite beginner applique shape. The reason for that is because you're going to practice a straight edge, going to practice a curve, you'll practice an inner corner, and you'll practice an outer corner. So a heart really is a good way to get started. And then I have a C over here, because this is for my daughter, and her name starts with a C. This was for my little one, my toddler. Her name is with an E. So she's asked for a pencil case with her letter on with glitter and a heart. If you don't know where to find shapes, I like to get my shapes and my letters on Canva. You can get a free Canva, use a free Canva account. But you can use Microsoft Word. You can trace from a coloring book. That's a popular one. All kinds of ways to trace this. Something you need to keep in mind is you're going to iron your interfacing, and I do recommend a relatively sturdy interfacing. You're going to iron the interfacing onto the back of your fabric, right? Which means your image is going to be mirrored. It's going to be the wrong way around on the front. Because I have a C and I have a heart, both of which can be turned any which way, I'm not going to worry about that. But if you have a shape or a letter that needs to be pointing in a certain direction, trace onto the shiny part, the back of your interfacing, so you have a mirror image. How do you trace this? I like to, if it's small like this, I just stick my interfacing with some painter's tape onto my laptop screen. I measure the shape on my screen and I just stick this on there and I trace with a pencil. You can print it, of course, but pay attention to the size. So two important things is the size. It needs to be the right size and it needs to be a mirror image. You can, of course, layer applique. If, for example, you're making something like a house, a cloud with a rainbow, you'll have different shapes on top of each other. You get loads of applique patterns all over the internet. Okay, before I start with a heart, let's talk about sewing this onto your pattern piece. Now, I hope I have enough fabric here. Yes, I do. Before I start with the placement on my pattern piece, you do need to consider, if you're adding this to a shirt or a bag or whatever you're adding it to, do consider where any folds and seams will be. This pattern has a boxed bottom edge, this pencil case. As you can see, I've drawn a red line on there. And I need my applique shapes to be inside this shape over here at the top. I don't want it in the seam allowance because it will get bent and ruined. So not sewing into the seam allowance, which is also over here, the seam allowance. There's a kind of a fold allowance. I don't know. It's not a word, but I would like my applique to fit into this area right over here. So always consider how big you need it to be. I've measured this area. It was 2.5 inches or about 6 centimeters. And that's why my shapes are the size that they are. I'm going to get started. First things first is to get my fabric cut out and attached to my pattern piece. You can cut your pattern piece out already. I'm actually going to try a slightly different way. I don't usually do it this way. So I hope it works out okay. And that is just to trace my pattern piece onto my fabric. I don't usually do this. Usually I'll just cut this out. Or even just trace the block onto here. And I might regret this because I don't do this often. But what I want is the placement of my pattern. So I can actually just mark the placement too. I'm marking my fabric with chalk. And with applique, I do not recommend using friction pens or those heat disappearing pens unless you want it to disappear, because you will be doing some ironing and pressing, and you don't want your picture to disappear. So I've just traced my pattern partially just because I want to know where to place my applique. So there and around about here, somewhere in this area. So this is just chalk and I can remove that easily. So I'd like to place my shape in that area. And I'm going to start by ironing my shape onto my applique fabric. And here you can be nice and fussy if you've ever heard the term fussy cutting, this is what they mean. It's when you cut your fabric so you can see a specific shape. So this is the back of the fabric, and I can see more or less where it's going. So I'll try and get some of the flowers in. She'll like that. There we go. I've got loads of flowers over there. That's a really fussy one, isn't it? Let's see if I can fit. We're usually so afraid of wasting any fabric. That looks good. Okay. As you can see, my patch is larger than the shape. I'm just going to press this in place there and cut it out. Now with turned applique, or whatever the official term is, you can actually cut this or stitch around this and turn it out. I've seen it done that way. Oh, of course, if you're doing the glitter filled applique, you'll need some glitter or confetti. I'm just going to press this on here. And then I'll do this one separately. Then I'm going to cut that shape out and attach it to my pattern piece. Now you can choose whether you want to interface this pattern piece before or after the applique. I think it depends on how thick your fabric is and how easy applique is for you. If you are using fusible fleece, you may find, oops, I think I've squished my heart slightly. You may find it's easier to stitch if you've already interfaced your fabric piece. I'm not going to do that right now. I may regret it because I haven't cut my pattern out and I don't like my fleece to be within my seam allowances. Okay, I'm cutting my heart out. There's no seam allowance attached to it or anything. I'm just cutting around the edges of my shape. And now, as you can see, it's mirrored. It's the other way around. Okay, so now I need to attach this to the fabric. I'm going to have the C going over it. So maybe I'll go there. I'd like to position this close to it like that. Is it in the middle? I'm just eyeballing this. Now you want to somehow attach this to your fabric. You can use glue stick. I've seen that used quite a lot. And then of course my favorite little sewing friend over here is this fusible hem tape. And it really is a tiny piece that I need. You just need this to stay in place. You get applique paper, you get special applique paper that sticks on both sides, and it's fusible as well, so you iron it on. I have seen many people use something called freezer paper, which is really hard to find in my country. So I am using some of my spider webbing, double-sided webbing, fusible hem tape, whatever you want to call it. Just pressing that in place. This piece of fabric can do with an iron too. So all I want is I don't want my applique to move. You can see it's all stuck in place. Right, it doesn't need to be perfect. I don't want to worry too much about this. I do like the bottom corner of the heart to be nicely stuck on here. Okay, and now it's time to do some stitching. So when it comes to the actual stitching, you may want a nice contrasting thread. I keep wanting to say contrasting fabric. Okay, you may want a contrasting thread. I know I prefer a contrasting thread. Let me zoom in and you can see what I'm doing. Apologies for the camera adjustments here. I did this once and my camera completely just fell off and ended up on the floor. Okay, whoops. See what I mean? Welcome to live sewing. Okay, we've got the machine in sight. What I want to show you is the stitch that I'll be using. So over here you can see all my different stitches. I have attached this stitch guide to my machine because I keep losing it. But that's a good one. This zigzag over there. That's a very good stitch, using a zigzag stitch. And all kinds of decorative stitches. You can use whatever you like. I mean, you're the boss. You make the rules and you can use whichever one you want. Then over here I have 2 applique stitches. I've got a kind of a little owl shape over there. The difference between the two, this one has 2 stitches between and that one has 1 stitch in between. For smaller appliques like this, I prefer the one with only 1 stitch in between. So I'm going to use that one, and you actually get a special presser foot for this. Is this on? I've just turned it off. Okay. You actually get a presser foot. It's an open toe presser foot or satin stitch presser foot. And it's number 28. There we have it. And my presser foot looks like, now where have I put it? I used it recently. There it is. Okay, it looks like that. It has an open space there so you can see what you're doing. And then it has this very helpful line. I like to line the fabric edge with that line. And please, as with everything, do a little test stitch first and decide whether you like it. So I will grab a piece of scrap over here and do a test stitch on it, just to give me an idea of what it looks like. And pay attention to where it starts and where it ends. If you're sewing a zigzag stitch, it's much easier. But just pay attention to where the stitch starts, where it ends. I think you can see over there. So mine goes forwards, back, forwards, left, right. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's quite therapeutic once you get into it. And this is what it looks like. This is called a blanket stitch. So now you can see what it looks like there. So I'll go all around the edge, and I want those straight stitches. I would like the straight stitches to go around the edge over there. And when it comes to turning, you don't want to turn on the side stitch. Focus, there we go. You don't want to turn on that side stitch because it's 2 stitches. So what it will do then is it's going to split the side stitch open and you'll have a little arrow. And you don't really want that. So always try and turn on the straight stitch. So it takes a little bit of focus. You can set the stitch length and width. I am perfectly happy with what I already have. Now the last thing before you start is, if your fabric is too thin, it's going to bunch while you're doing this. And for that you have something called tearaway. You can put paper behind it. That's also fine. That's what tearaway is. Let me get mine. Tearaway is this very thin, like parchment kind of paper. Whatever you want to call it. It reminds me of that. And it really helps just to hold everything in place. You get wash away as well. You get all kinds of fun little applique fabrics. want to zoom out slightly because I don't think you can see my hands moving. Okay, I'm going to start, and I am going to start at one of the straight edges. Don't start, if you're new to this, don't start in a really difficult place, okay? Let's start at a straight edge. I like to line a mark on my presser foot up with, so in this case, with the edge. So in this case, I have a little line on my presser foot. I'm going to line that up, and let's get started. Now I'm nearing the corner, and for that I need to think about how I am going to turn. So I'm going to pay attention to my stitches. Some machines have this little button, that button, and it will finish the stitch. I don't like it because I always press it at the wrong time. So I'm just going to count actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I need to go straight towards the corner, and then I need to turn. So I know it's 2, 2, 3, and then I want to turn so that my straight up stitch goes straight. Okay, and I want to turn again. Maybe a bit early turning there for me. It does take practice, and also choosing what you like. So some people like to skip the corner entirely. Okay, now we get to the curvy part. Now, as I'm sewing, I'm going to just turn it slightly every few stitches. You don't want crazy sudden turns. Also, applique by nature is imperfect. Kind of a scrappy kind of sewing thing. I've definitely stitched too far in from the edge. So I'm just turning ever so slightly as I go. Again, now I'm at an inner corner. And I'd like to pivot completely. I don't want any stitches in the corner. So I've sewn my last stitch right close to the corner, and I'm just turning it completely to start on the next section. This is one of those sewing things. The more you do it, the faster you get, the better you get. I don't do this often. I can if I must. So as you can see there, I've stitched perhaps a bit too far in. You can always trim any excess off as well. Okay, I need to start turning over here. And I am at the last stitch. Okay. Looks good enough. I'm happy. Let me just trim all the little threads and things off. Okay, so that's your first one. Raw edge, simple raw edge applique. There we go. You could of course have used a zigzag stitch, anything like that. If you want, you can trim those edges. I'm happy not to trim them. Happy with what it looks like. And this tear away, it's literally tear away, as you can see. You could use tissue paper, toilet paper, standard white page, printer page. And I'm definitely going to get rid of it because I am going to be adding interfacing on the back and I don't want it stuck inside my interfacing. There we go. Now, next up, I am going to show you how I did the glitter fold applique. And that's so much fun. There we go. So that's it. That's your raw edge applique. And if you want to do the glitter fold applique, be sure to watch the next one where I show you how I do that.